just the coolest thing to hear because, and I hope I don't sound like a broken record, but I started watching ASMR and listening to it a long time before I started making my own content. And it was almost like a complete disconnect, thinking, well, no one's actually gonna feel that way about my videos. But apparently people do. I don't know. I just want to say thank you again. I feel so blessed, and I'm so happy. And I'm so grateful that you choose to click on my videos and watch them. It means everything to me. Okay. I've got 2 cups of tea today. I've got this cup that smells so nice. It's a raspberry pomegranate. And then I have in my Halloween mug a lemon ginger. And it just felt right to go with some herbal tea for now. Okay, so let's get into your scary stories. I'm gonna start with the pomegranate. Cheers. Yeah, that's nice. Okay. Hi, Leah. Hello. I have been listening for a while now, and I wanted to share the personal experiences that my family and I had while we were renting an old house about 15 years ago. To preface this, my parents had never been believers of the supernatural prior to moving in, and these events taking place. I, however, was always a kid who spooked easily. I was always scared of the dark and anything that went bump in the night. When I was 14, my parents packed us up and moved the family into a newly renovated home in an older neighborhood in town. This was in January, just after the new year. My younger sister and I were so excited. We had never lived in a house with an upstairs and a basement. When we moved in, the landlord told my parents that the house was old, obviously. It was built in 1853, and the back portion of the house was a newer addition. The addition included a large eating kitchen, a laundry room, a half bath with a basement access, and a third room. The house had been lifted and had the foundations redone. The house did not have an old cellar, but a new, freshly poured concrete basement. He also mentioned that the subfloors were all original, which meant anytime someone walked anywhere in the house, you could hear everything. So things started slowly and mostly to me at first. One morning I had gone downstairs before school to get some clothes out of the dryer. The washer and dryer were right next to the basement door, and as I was sifting through the clothing to find what I was looking for, I heard a thump coming from the basement. That caught my attention. It had me glancing to the door and grabbing my clothes a little bit faster. Then there were 2 thumps in succession, I stood there staring at the door, that was when I heard it. Footsteps were coming up the wooden basement stairs. I didn't give it a second thought before turning tail and bolting out of that room, going up the stairs and straight to my mom, who, of course, did not believe me. She wrote it off as an old house creaking and my imagination just getting the better of me in a new place. I accepted the explanation and I chastised myself for being a scaredy cat. After that, I heard the footsteps a few more times, but I did my best to pretend that they were not real. Whatever it was in the house, it did not like being ignored. Not long after that first incident on the stairs, I invited a couple of my friends over for a sleepover. As young teens, we spent most of the night in the computer room on MySpace and watching YouTube videos. We had 3 chairs at the computer desk set up in a semicircle, one for each of us. As we were all looking at the computer screen, my friend in the middle at the keyboard suddenly fell to the floor. Oh God. The chair that she had been sitting in had been pulled out from underneath her, and it rolled into the closet behind us. The chair that she was sitting in had been pulled out from underneath her. It was impossible for either me or my other friend to have done that at the angle that we were sitting at around the computer. She swore to me up and down that she had not been leaning in the chair and felt it be pulled out from underneath her harshly. We bolted upstairs to tell my mom what happened. Once again, my mom wrote it off, saying you must have been leaning without realizing it. You were sitting on the chair with wheels. There is no such thing as ghosts. We spent the rest of the night in my room with the door shut and locked while my friend prayed. The months wore on. The thumps, knocks, and footsteps continued happening, but seemingly only to me. I did not tell my mom anymore because she never believed me. But it became my new normal. That makes me sad. When I heard the footsteps on the stairs, it was all I could do to stop as I was doing. It was all I could do to stop what I was doing in the laundry room, turn my back to the door, and make my way back upstairs to my room. Every time it felt like someone was just behind me. I would get chills up my back and an overwhelming, oppressive feeling of someone or something always watching me. I never, ever felt alone. I don't know if did you mention was the computer room in the basement? Because that was sitting at the PC and she was as white as a ghost. She didn't waste my time before bursting out that she had heard the footsteps. The same ones that I had been hearing for months. Except she heard them walking through the living room and going into the kitchen. She actually thought that my dad had gotten out of bed. He worked the night shift, and she had gotten up to greet him. When she made it into the kitchen, of course, no one was there. She was all alone on the main floor. She definitely would have heard someone walk back through the house to the stairs. She went up to their bedroom upstairs where my dad was still sound asleep. Finally, I had been vindicated and someone to share my feelings with about all of this. Once my mom started having her own experiences in the house, things seemed to ramp up pretty quickly. My younger sister complained of her toys being moved around when nobody was home. She wouldn't go anywhere on the main floor alone, and we would only go down to the main floor after dark, together in pairs. While all of this was happening to us, my dad was having experiences of his own that we didn't find out about until after we moved away. Most of the activity that summer stuck to the main floor and the basement. There were several nights that my mom, my sister, and I would be in the computer room, surfing the web, playing video games, and just hanging out, when suddenly a feeling of gut-churning terror would descend upon us. We never had to say anything to each other. We all knew what was coming. We would sit together, feeling like cornered animals, and we would just wait it out. Within minutes, the footsteps would rattle through the living room, go into the kitchen, down the hall, and they would stop when they reached the door of the computer room. We would feel the presence. Oh no. We would feel the presence of this thing enter the room with us. The only thing that we could do was drop what we were doing and head upstairs. Our only perceived safe haven in the whole house. my sister was up again, my mom jumped up to head off to the top of the stairs, worried that she would fall down the stairs in her half-asleep state. When she returned a few minutes later, she had gone quiet. She sat back down on the couch and she said she was asleep right where I left her. She never got back out of bed. It was that thing. It was that thing again. It seemed that our refuge upstairs was over. There was nowhere left in the house where we felt we were truly alone. That fall, I had my friend over for another sleepover. The same one who had had the chair pulled out from under her the previous winter. While she was generally afraid of the house, the evening was actually pretty quiet. The resident ghost had behaved themselves, or so I thought. In the morning, my friend told me that something had pulled the covers off of her while we were asleep. She said that she had gotten woken up by the feeling of the comforter being slowly tugged down the bed. Thinking that it had been me, she pulled back on them when she realized that I was asleep next to her and I was snoring. She gave one final tug and the blanket went limp. She never stayed in my house again as long as I lived there. She had nightmares of the basement, which she had never been in, and was convinced that there was a very negative energy lurking down there. And I did not disagree with her. All of these things became normal to us, almost predictable even. We adjusted our routines to avoid being downstairs after dark. We only did the laundry during the daylight hours and just did not go into the basement at all. One night, not long after dozing off in my room, I was woken up suddenly by the sound of something slamming into my bedroom door. Hard. The door handle jiggled, and I laid in my bed, completely frozen, staring at the door and waiting. When the shock wore off, the only thing I could think to do was call out to my mom, who was in her bedroom next to mine. Mom. I could barely make my own voice work, but somehow my mom had heard me. She called back to me, saying, I heard it too. I heard it too. Try to go back to sleep. There was not much sleep to be had for me that night. It wasn't long after that my parents started to look for somewhere else for us to live. While sitting in the living room with my mom and my dad, my mom and I filled my dad in on all of the things that had been happening to us. the summer, he had been down in the basement organizing some boxes. He said that he was walking from one side to the other when he bounced off of something. It was like he had run into a wall. Except there was nothing there. Literally just air. He said that it had knocked him back so hard that he stumbled and he almost fell to the floor. My dad, being who he is, simply righted himself, moved over slightly, and continued doing what he was doing as if nothing had happened. He continued saying that on another night he had been in the computer room using the PC when he looked to his left, and no. Nope. He was using the PC, and when he looked to his left, standing next to him was a woman in an old-fashioned dress. He could not make out any details or features of her face, and once he noticed her, she just faded away. When I asked him why he never mentioned any of that before, he said that he simply didn't want to scare us, which I understood. I was a young teenager and my sister was only 6. Telling us that the house was haunted was the last thing he probably wanted to put in our heads when he knew that we were already scared. During our conversation, we jokingly nicknamed our resident entity as Elizabeth. Putting a name to it made it seem a little bit less scary, and it helped to fortify us for the last few months that we lived there. I wish I was able to say that we cleaned the house and we freed that spirit, or that we found information about the home to give us some clarity, but I can't. Whatever was in that house is still there. I still drive by and I wonder about that woman in the dress. I wonder if other residents are spooked by footsteps, or if they're tormented in their beds at nighttime. We did not live there long, but the house made an impression on my family that will last forever. We lived there, we survived it, and then we left, and we did it together. If you have made it this far, I hope you have enjoyed the story of the house that made believers out of my parents. I love your videos, and I look forward to what you have in store for us this spooky season. Best wishes, Courtney from Michigan. Thank you so much, Courtney, for taking all of that time to write that story. Cheers to you. That was awesome. I'm sorry, obviously, that you went through that as a kid. That must have been terrifying. But at the same time, I feel like it's kind of cool that you can say you actually lived in a haunted house. That's cool. Thank you so much for writing. much I had any experience riding before. So my Thai friend suggested that I practice riding at night on the backcountry roads where there is little to no traffic. I would usually ride my scooter behind my friend who had a motorcycle. He knew the roads better than me, so I would follow his lead, and we did this frequently without any problems or unusual events. One night in particular, we decided to just take a joyride on one of the bigger motorcycles. We went on a route that he was familiar with. He had taken that road a few times before during the day when visiting some of the more secluded temples in the area. But this was the first time that he had taken this road at night. For the most part, it had a few smaller hills, but it was mostly flat and straight, with no buildings or lights along the way. We were cruising along through the darkness, with only the headlight of his motorcycle illuminating a short distance ahead of us. There was not much on the roadside either, only some tall grass and bushes. Suddenly, out of the pitch darkness from the shoulder of the road, this large, white, hairless creature came running full speed on all fours towards us. It was like it had been waiting for us to get close enough so that it could leap out and ambush us. I distinctly remember how pale its skin was. It was almost luminous and completely hairless. It kept pace with the motorcycle even as my friend sped up. I was able to get a good look at it, and it looked like a cross between a dog and a rat. It had a dog's body. It was terribly thin and looked emaciated, with longer than normal legs, with rat-like paws, a long rat-like tail, and a face that was a grotesque mixture between what I could only describe as a rat and a dog. It had very small rounded ears and a long muzzle like a dog, and it snapped viciously at my legs for a couple of seconds before it finally veered off the road and disappeared back into the bushes. I don't like that. This creature was much bigger than any large dog. Thailand is known for having a large population of stray dogs, but this thing was absolutely not a dog. We eventually entered the city limits when we saw streetlights lining the rest of the road leading up to a gas station. We pulled in at the station. Both of us were shaking, and I asked him what that thing was. My friend, who is extremely superstitious, refused to talk about it. He said we need to just accept that it was a rabid stray dog. For a while, I even refused refused to ride in the city at night. I lost contact with my friend a few months after that incident. His behavior actually changed quite drastically, and we stopped hanging out as much. And then we just stopped talking altogether. To this day, I still have no real answers for what that thing was. I have asked locals about it, but everyone refuses to talk about it. That's creepy. I tried researching online, and the closest thing to it was a video that I found of some urban explorers walking through an abandoned hospital, and they came across this thing that looked very similar, and they referred to it as the crawler. I don't like that. I can't quite remember, but I did a video on one of my other channels. Did I do it here as well? I can't remember. But it was a true story about some friends riding in a car down a dark road one night, and they spotted some monstrous creature. And I think it sounded similar to what you described. I can't remember, but that's the image that I have from reading that story. Thank you so much for sending that in. That is extremely creepy. And if you get any answers to what you may have seen, please keep us updated. Cheers. Okay. Hi, Leah. Hello. My name is Nina, and I have been a silent subscriber for a while. I love your videos so much. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you so much. I wanted to share a true story, somewhat creepy, that has always stuck with me. It happened on the night of my 21st birthday, and to this day, it still gives me chills. The night before, I was at my friend's house for a movie night. We decided to watch The Fourth Kind. If you have seen it, you know how unsettling it is. I have seen it. I know how unsettling it is. I watched that movie one time while I was in college, and I watched it because that was when I wanted to get into psychology. It's about a psychologist, and I was so creeped out. I said I'm never watching this ever again, and I haven't. I stuck to my word. celebrated at my parents' house. Everything felt normal. When it was time to say goodbye to our friends whose house that we had watched the movie at, my sisters, my cousins, my best friend and I stepped outside to walk and chat a little bit more. And that was when I felt it. This strange feeling of something watching us. My eyes kept drifting to the top left side of my house. My friend noticed and asked me what I was looking at. And all I could say was that something is watching us. They laughed and told me that I was creeping them out, but I could not shake this feeling off. I kept staring at the left corner, and then, out of nowhere, this enormous owl called a lechuza swooped down at us. Its wings were massive. We all screamed and we bolted to the door, slamming it behind us. In Mexican culture, we believe that a lechuza is not just an owl. It's actually said to be a witch or a malevolent spirit that transforms into a giant, ominous bird. We told our family. They just brushed it off, thinking that we were lying. But all of us know what we saw. And we know what we felt. Thank you once again, Leah. I know that it's not as scary, but it was fun to share it with you. Hope you have a great weekend. Sincerely, Sabrina. Thank you so much, Sabrina. Cheers. That is definitely creepy. Especially right after watching The Fourth Kind. I was creeped out by owls for a good while. And also, aren't owls like actually dangerous? Like big owls, they can do some serious damage. It's creepy. I love owls though. I think they're so cool. But a little part of me will always be creeped out from them. me like money when he realized that I was awake. But the moment that I looked at him, I felt it. His energy was not the same as my father's energy. It wasn't necessarily bad, but I just knew that it was not his energy. But I told myself that maybe I was just tired. I feel like this is gonna turn into Coraline in real life. He stood in the doorway staring at me. I asked him what he was doing there, and he looked me dead in the eyes and he said, "Go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. Go back to sleep." His voice sounded wrong. It sounded like my father's, but it was off. That's Coraline. I don't like that. It's Coraline. I finally said to him, "Fine, but can you give me a hug and tuck me in first?" He walked over. The money that he had hidden was gone. He leaned down and he hugged me, but when I wrapped my arms around him, my hands went right through his body. A warmth spread up my arms and it went through my chest. It was not a burning heat, but a calming warmth. It felt like the universe itself was hugging me, telling me that everything was going to be okay. Maybe it's not Coraline. Then suddenly, the thing that looked like my father suddenly ran out of my room. I was a very curious, brave little 7-year-old, so I jumped out of bed and I followed it. It ran straight into my parents' room. No. I burst in after it, only to see my real father sound asleep in bed in his pajamas. I shook him awake and I asked him what he was doing in my room, and he told me that he had not been there at all. When I told people about this later, nobody believed it. Everyone insisted that I was just dreaming. But I know what I saw, and I know what I felt. A few weeks later, I started going through medical difficulties that eventually led to my foot being amputated. I'm so sorry. But every time I was scared, that same warmth would flood through my body, just like the night Oliwia, I think. Oliwia here. First of all, I wanted to say that you're my absolute go-to when it comes to both scary stories and ASMR. I absolutely love your voice, and it is perfect for that stuff. I think I've listened to all of the scary story videos on your channel, and now I get really bored at work, so I just rewatch them. I have been thinking about sharing a story, more than one actually, for quite a while now, and I finally decided to do it today. Thank you so much. I'm really glad that you did. Okay. I'm so happy that you enjoy the videos. It's really cool. Okay. Sorry in advance if my English is not perfect, as it is not my first language. Story 1. This one isn't actually mine, but it still gives me chills every time I think about it. When I was in middle school, I had a group of friends. It was an all-girl group, created kind of randomly from a few smaller ones by the people who knew a person or two from the other group, if that makes sense. Anyways, it was like 7, 8 people. One time, one of the girls threw a birthday party at her house, and it was the first time most of us met her mom, who was a single parent. She was absolutely lovely, very welcoming, and determined to entertain us. At one point in the evening, we got into spooky mood, and we wanted to play some stupid games that were supposed to summon ghosts or whatever. Her mom was in the kitchen at the time making dinner for us when she got back and saw what we were doing, and she got really, really upset, and she told us to stop at once. She was almost frantic, and so much so that we had to try and calm her down. When she eventually settled, her daughter asked her what was wrong, and she told us a story that sent chills down our spines. She had also had a group of friends, but it was in college. A few girls, a few boys, 10 people in total. At one time, they had a little party or a get-together, just them in their dorm, and at some point, someone suggested that they should play with a Ouija board. Everyone except my friend's mom was really into this idea. She didn't want to ruin the mood of the party, so she just sat back on the bed and did not participate. And she occupied herself with reading a magazine or something. When her friends started asking questions like, passed away one by one, all of them in accidents. It took 10 years for all of the friends to pass away. Every one of them except my friend's mom. And sure, you can say that accidents happen, but I don't think that it wasn't intentional. Ever since then, she was so scared of the paranormal and was living in fear that one day, that thing that had gotten her friends would come for her, will come for her. She believes that they summoned something truly deadly that night. It still scares me to even think or write about it. It's just so scary and so unsettling. And needless to say, I never even thought about games including ghosts and demons. That's horrible. Oh my god. Okay, story 2 is one of my favorites, as it is really hopeful in a way. My mom was born in the 70s on the Polish countryside. As you may know from history lessons, this was not the best time for the country. People were poor and miserable, and my mom's family was no exception. Her parents lived in a really small house with 5 of their kids and her father's mother, her grandma, Janina. I think I said the name wrong, I'm sorry. You read J-A like German, yes, and the rest as it is. I don't know how to say yes in German, or do I? No, I'm sorry. I'll just say the grandmother. Living in such a crowded space led to all of them growing really attached to their grandma, especially the 2 oldest girls, my mom and her sister Anna. She was a really wise, really loving woman, and they adored her. Even more so when they grew up, because they appreciated her wisdom even more. But the years were going by, and Grandma was getting older and weaker. My mom's sister got a boyfriend, and the relationship was getting pretty serious. The grandmother always said that she isn't going anywhere until she sees Anna get married. And that was an ongoing joke, and it kind of gave everyone hope that they would have more time left with her, as if she could control when she would pass away. Eventually, Anna and her boyfriend did get engaged. Around the same time, Grandma got really weak. She couldn't get out of bed, and she would sleep a lot. She wasn't sick, she said. She was just very tired. Anna was trying to organize a wedding as fast as she could. She really wanted Grandma to see her get married. Now the day of the wedding finally came. Grandma attended the mass, but she could not attend the reception. She was simply too weak. option. In the middle of the night, when she was checking on Grandma, she noticed that she was really quite out of it. She quickly gathered the closest family so they could say goodbye. I think they previously consulted with Grandma, and she wanted to be left alone, meaning no medical intervention. My mom and Anna said goodbye to her last. They were very emotional, but Grandma was very calm. She held their cheeks and told them that she loved them. When everyone said their goodbyes, they left so she could have some peace and quiet. Teresa stayed with her until she fell asleep. Then she went to the kitchen that was connected to Grandma's room. There was no door on it. The lights were off except for one candle that was lit on the table that was standing by the window in the center of the room. Teresa turned around to make some tea, and she had heard Grandma breathing rapidly. She turned around again and wanted to go to her, but then she stopped dead in her tracks. She was standing directly in front of the window, and right above it on the wall were two shadows of moths, just kind of flickering around themselves. A beam of faint light was around them. But the weird thing is, there were no actual physical moths in the room as she looked around, and the shadows just did not look like regular shadows. Something about them was different. They made their way all the way across the kitchen and disappeared into the room where Grandma was sleeping. And as the shadows entered the room, Grandma laughed really weakly, but happily and calmly. And then she let out her last breath. Teresa then ran to her. Grandma was gone. And until this day, may be in autumn.